Dao, everything is inside of Dao. There's nothing outside of Dao, what you'd call the supreme ultimate. There is nothing bigger than Dao. Also, there is nothing smaller than Dao. You have to go through the fire first. It's not an easy path. It takes years. It took me, I was brought up Catholic. There's a lot of conditioning in that to break. Nothing wrong with religion.
And so I want to just explore what your understanding of Daoism, understanding of love is in regards to Daoism, what it is and how can we cultivate it if it is important. Hey friend, before we get into the rest of the episode, if you want to help support me make more videos like these to help you and to help us collectively live in balance, I invite you to join the online Wudang Daoist Wellness Academy. This is Master Gu's, my Tai Chi Master's, teachings put onto the internet, recorded with love from the heart of China. You can learn Tai Chi forms, Qigong forms, guided meditations, Daoist philosophy, anytime, anywhere. Amazing practices to empower you to take charge of your wellness. We offer a free 7-day trial so you can see what learning's available for you for no risk and join the community. There's 800 students learning from around the world with monthly live streams with Master Gu. There's so much for you to explore. Click the link in the description to join and see for yourself. I hope you enjoy the rest of today's episode. So welcome friends, I am really excited about this conversation. It's a rare treat to have not just one Daoist to explore the Dao with, but two in the room, and what a beautiful setting they're in with scrolls and cups of tea. And so, yeah, what a privilege to be with both of you. If you'd like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your Dao journey before we get into the meat of the conversation.
Yes, yeah.
You go first.
Yeah, well, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you, George, for the invite. Well, Desmond here is the president of the International Taoist Society. He has been a practitioner of the Daoist arts of Lishi for 50 years.
50 years
50
now.
years, and he's been teaching for 40 years. And he is also the first Westerner to be the overseas president for the Wai-Yii Wushu and the Shandong Wushu Association. Shandong being a province in China of 100 million people, and so it's it's quite a privilege.
I don't know how that happened. I mean, it's just Dao. I am Wai-Yii, and I am the Vice President of the International Taoist Society. I've been teaching and practicing Lishi, the Daoist arts of Lishi, for many years, and I'm also an author of Way Out, Daoist Path to a Fearless Life. So very, very happy to be here. The next book will be called Way In. So complimentary.
Yeah, in out, shake it all about. That's what we like to do.
That's the one.
So, yeah, well, beautiful to be with you, Desmond and Wai-Yii. Yeah, I'm looking forward to today's conversation. We're going to look at emotional alchemy and how to navigate our emotions using Daoist wisdom, as well as I want to learn more about both of your paths and how you came onto this journey. So I'm hoping and believe today will be a really valuable conversation. And yeah, let's just jump straight in and let's start with this word alchemy. So if anyone is on the video at the moment, they can see behind me, I've got this scroll behind me, which is called the Inner Alchemy Picture. Yeah. And for the Daoist arts, alchemy is one of the most important practices or even intentions of the Daoist world. A lot of people can see alchemy as something mystical, like turning copper into gold, like isn't that a fool's errand? But there is a deeper meaning to alchemy. So I'd love to, as our springboard off into the wonderful world of Dao for the next 45 minutes, what your understanding of alchemy is.
Okay. First, let's start with Dao. So Dao is everything. Dao, everything is inside of Dao. There's nothing outside of Dao, what you'd call the supreme ultimate. There is nothing bigger than Dao. Also, there is nothing smaller than Dao. It's as big as anything we can imagine. It's smaller than the tiniest element. That's for starters. Grasp that. That's very important. Everything in the universe is within Tao. Nothing is outside of it. It can't be. It's not possible. Tao, we cannot see how big it is. We cannot see how small it is. That's for starters. So Tao is very important. Everything is inside of it. It's very important to grasp that there is nothing superior to Tao. Gods, any named gods, are inside of Tao. They're not bigger than Tao. They're inside of Tao. We're inside of Tao. Next is nature. So Tao made nature. Tao is benevolent. So Tao made nature. Nature then made this planet. Tao made the planet, but nature then allows us to live. It gives us the atmosphere, the oxygen, the food, the water. Without nature, we couldn't live. So nature is benevolent. So that because nature is part of Tao. Tao made nature. They're one and the same. So nature follows Tao, but Tao follows nature. We must then follow nature. If we don't, life will not be good. If you follow nature and flow, then life will be very good. I'm looking at the screen there, so I'm nice and keep focused on that. Right, so what was your question again?
So, yeah, beautiful. So our connection with, a word like Dao, which the ancient Chinese used for talking to this great mystery that we're involved with, and
yes.
understanding nature, working with it, leads to, a life of harmony and strength.
Yes.
And this word alchemy in particular, so how does alchemy fit
Okay.
into understanding nature?
So having got Tao and nature, I'm doing this really quickly. We would have to spend hours talking about it. So where does the alchemy come in? The alchemy comes from following nature. I have to follow nature. You're made of about 60% water. Follow water, which is the nearest thing to Tao. You can see water. You cannot see Tao. It's invisible. You can't see nature, but you can see its manifestation. I can see you, I can see the trees, I can see water, everything. That's nature. That's Tao, visible to the eyes. You cannot see Tao with the eyes. You need the inner eye. Be like water. Follow the way of water. So water is not greedy. It's not arrogant. It doesn't want power. It always flows downhill. It goes to the lowest place. It will sit with the lowest people on the planet, those who you would not want to associate with. They still have Tao. But people often want to be lofty and above that. So they're cutting off their ability to be virtuous, to develop. The alchemy comes from having a practice that allows you to be as water. So we have to get down to what is the practice. The practice is to cultivate virtue through Tai Chi, Qigong, Dao Yin, massage, health arts, etc., diet. Those are the building blocks to develop a practice which will take you closer to Tao.
In China, the associations that Desmond is connected to, they say that on their website, on the internet, they say that his practice creates what they would call a superior person. Not someone that's arrogant, but someone that has undergone that process, starting that process of refinement, of alchemy. So you go from like a normal. Desmond likes to use an analogy of a potato.
Oh, don't blame me.
You just pull out the ground, and it's like a rough item, you know, the raw materials are there. But then when it goes through a process, and you know, it might be the factory, and it might be that it gets washed and scrubbed and it gets polished, and you know, it gets put in a packet or whatever, and then at the end of that you have something that is saleable. It's still in essence the potato, but it's been refined and it's gone through a process.
It now has a value. You can sell it. You've got to become useful to your community, to the people. So this alchemic process, that's how you do it, the stages I've said. So that you become a saleable product.
Something of
value.
Of value that is positive.
But mainly to the community so that you can help others.
Yeah, so a process of refinement and that focus on practice. And I like that idea of the potato, which, you know, in its essence has this potential and has this natural beauty. And we Taoist explorers will know the word pu, which refers to how things in their natural essence have a value without needing to be transformed.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, there is work to be done, some refinement in order to become more valuable. And in particular, I love this idea of service and to be able to help community. And so if that's alchemy, let's try and get to emotions, because one of the big blockages in our lives to being of service and to be resilient and to find peace in our minds so that we have a full cup so that we can support others and be of value to our communities is our emotions. You know, the storms of anxiety and grief and sadness and joy, as you know, positive or negative, the labels that we put upon them. And so when we apply this word alchemy to emotions, what would we mean by that?
Do you want to start?
I can start. So in the West, lots of cultures, you know, to be human is to feel emotion, and you know, and people take their cues from sort of romantic films or you know, pop songs or you know, how to their culture and their way of being from this sort of emotional state, you know. But in Taoism, the idea of emotions is unbalanced. There's no harmony. If you're happy and joyous, which is something that's sought after in the West, joy is good. But if it's too joyous, too stimulating, it can stress your organs. In terms of a Daoist Chinese medicine point of view, and then as you peak, it'll start to fade, and you drop and drop and drop and drop, and then you hit the low points, and that's not nourishing for a person. That's not nourishing for your energy, for your mind, for your spirit. To plateau and to be even and be content is much more Taoist. And to do that the way to do that is to follow nature, as Desmond.
Follow nature, yeah.
Do you want to?
So being, you know, people talk about love and happy, being in love, but a lot of it's the mind, and it's just lust and desire. That's not real love, this lust and desire, because one minute they love you, charge, and the next day you've offended them, they hate you, and it's divorce of some description. That won't go into all. But that's all mind. It's chemicals. It's not Tao. It's not virtuous. You have to go back to the alchemic process that we talked about. That you have to first strengthen the body through exercises, Taoist exercises of all descriptions. The body has to be strong, not so it can be physically strong. It has to be strong enough, the vessel, to hold the energy which you're going to increase. through doing your standing and sitting. Do you understand? If your body isn't strong enough, it cannot hold that energy. It's leaking out everywhere because the mind isn't strong enough. You have to strengthen the mind, the heart, your emotions, as well as the body. Otherwise, crazy people have no control because they have no practice. So, I love you, I hate you, and we've all been through it. You know exactly what I mean. I don't have to tell you. So, and love is, women, they see a man as, just using that as an analogy, as a project that they can change him for the better. Men, on the other hand, don't want that woman to change. They want her to stay as she is. When change starts to happen, then the relationship starts to break down. Are you with me? Now, with alchemic practice, the two are in harmony. Like the sun and the moon rise and set. But one goes up, but as one's rising, the other one's going. One is not getting stronger and the other one weaker. They're just changing positions relatively. In the West, people think that yang gets weak, yang is falling, and yin is rising, or yang is rising, men are getting stronger,
yang is strong.
and that women
yin is weak.
Are falling. That's wrong. No, you must get balance. Neither one is stronger than the other. It's simple physics. It's relationships. It's the relation of where they are relative to each other. So love is about trust and freedom, that you allow each other the freedom and you have trust. That comes from virtue, from having strong energy, strengthening the organism, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Then you have love. So Daoists love, to give it a word, love everything in the world. But what you've got to have is a heart that's as deep as the deepest valley on the planet, and you stand there and you take in the whole energy of the world, of the universe. I mean, to hold that much energy, you need to be strong. You need to be open. That's the alchemic practice, to give you the ability to hold as much of that energy as you can. No right, no wrong, no good, no bad, not just the good energy, everything. Convert the negative into positive internally. So, I mean, we can go on for hours. Let's stop there.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Thank you both. Yeah, and a very different approach to living well and yang sheng wellness to what we find in the West, where, the pursuit of happiness, the end goal is this kind of giggly state where we don't have challenges. And what you're both describing is that immense power and freedom that we get from being able to hold it all.
Yes.
And not just aim for the good stuff and just, life is this endless cycles of feeling in connection and joy, and then losing ourselves to cling only to the peaks and to try and deny the troughs is to deny the reality of being human. But that takes practice and training. So that's really beautiful words, and certainly from my journey I would reject my anxiety. So my Taoist journey started from me being confused and anxious and not knowing how to relate to myself, not knowing how to be kind to myself. And I thought I was uniquely messed up for having these experiences of being anxious and being confused and finding life difficult.
But we're all in the same boat. We're all the same.
Yeah.
God, I had to go through that. She's had to go through that.
Absolutely.
You have to go through the fire first. It's not an easy path.
No.
It takes years. It took me, I was brought up Catholic. There's a lot of conditioning in that to break. Nothing wrong with religion, but it's the way that it's done doesn't suit the modern way. So you have to break that conditioning to develop. And unless you build a strong organism with a lot of energy, that controls you. You do not control your energy.
And that's part of it, in terms of the work, the gong, qigong, the
Yes.
gong fu, all of that. It indicates work. You have to go through a journey. You have to. It's that alchemy that you touched on earlier on. And it's anything that's worth anything requires effort. It's not that this instant culture that everyone wants everything quickly, instantly. There's little depth, little value in that. And for us to work and go through a practice that is consistent, a practice that you might have regularly, daily, to start to create that alchemic process, so that you're changing, year on year. You're not stopping. Anything that stops, and it starts to die in nature. It starts to, nature is constantly changing. That is the constant in nature. If you, Desmond talks about, you can look at nature outside your window, and the seasons change. They go from one to the next, but you won't necessarily see it with your eyes. But it's changing. It's moving.
Yeah. See, the nature we're talking about isn't the nature you can see with your eyes. It's the invisible nature. What you see with your eyes is what we call everyday Tao. The Tao we're talking about, the nature we're talking about, you can't see them. That's what you must develop, the sensitivity. You need energy to do it, to be able to connect to what is invisible. To most people, then, it doesn't exist. Even to scientists, it does not exist, because they can't see it with their eyes. If they can't see it, it doesn't exist. It's a very low level of status. It's no good. You'll never get to Tao with that.
Yeah, thank you both. And yeah, it's reassuring on the journey to realise that we're not alone with these challenges. And I talked to Deng Ming Dao last year, and we had a wonderful conversation. His definition of Tao is movement, full stop. Tao is movement. And that was a big lesson for me, is, I'd have anxiety come up, and emotions can be energy in motion. They are meant to flow through, to be experienced as guidance from the subconscious. But I would create stories with it and create rigidity, like, I'm an anxious person. I am weak for feeling these emotions. And so one of the alchemical processes for me was to notice those stories, and to notice that emotion, that energy arising within me, and to witness it, and that space that I got from my Tai Chi and meditation practice, which helped me then be able to flow through it without clinging. And I'd be interested to hear a little bit about your journeys, and perhaps we could hear your journeys through that. Perhaps one example of your emotional alchemy. Was there anything in particular that brought you to Taoism, and a particular thing that maybe would resonate with the audience of challenges that you had, that your Taoist practice helped you to transform?
Well, I always had the feeling that there was something more in life. I never felt I fitted as a youngster. That's a definite. I could feel energy, but then I couldn't give that a name. It wasn't until I met my teacher, Chi Su, that he gave it a name and said, no, you're not wrong, you're actually correct, but everyone tells you you're wrong and you're a bad un. You're not a good lad, you'll go to hell, you'll burn. Now, that conditioning goes in deep, and it takes a lot of years through the practice of Qigong, Tai Chi, as we've said, as your practice, meditation, to change that to the process washes through you, George. It washes through you. It's this constant washing on a daily process in practice. Like you wash yourself, but internally, that internal water washing through you constantly, until you start to shine your soul and get the shit off it. So that the clear you can be seen right through not the facade that people put to the front, that they're gorgeous on the outside, and you meet many of them, but they're rotten inside and not nice. You work it all out yourselves. I'm not going into details. You all can figure it out. You wouldn't be watching this program now if you didn't have that in you. You've got to have, something must resonate internally, or it's not for you. It doesn't matter. There's no right and wrong. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter. Keep your practice, keep going, do it daily, and things will happen. Doors will open, and you'll wonder, wow, how did that happen? That's Tao helping you. You're listening, you start to feel. You must get very, very sensitive, not just physically sensitive, internally with your energy. Listen to Tao, listen. Now you can't actually hear Tao, it doesn't talk to you in that way, but you can learn to sense Tao. Anyway.
And that's how you get rid of, you know, for lots of people when they start the journey, there's still those contradictions about when they don't understand Tao, they read text or whatever, and it's like, but there's, you know, Taoism is full of dichotomy, but as you work through your practice, as your water level rises, this is how Desmond describes it, as your water level rises and your energy level rises, then those dichotomies, those contradictions then stop existing for you, because you understand knowledge is your brain, basically, and people mistake knowledge for wisdom and understanding. So in the West we celebrate the brain.
Yes.
We celebrate intellectuals, and, you know, which is not incorrect, but it's out of balance, you know. And in Taoism, harmony and balance is absolutely one of the central tenets, because when you have lots of theory but you have no practice, it's out of balance. You have lots of knowledge, but you don't have a wisdom and a deep understanding. They're just words. And likewise, if there was no theory and it was just practice, then it's out of balance. But coming back to nature and that balance, it gets rid of all contradictions and kind of questions.
Yes.
There's understanding, because then you're connected to Tao, you're connected to the energy.
People could, at the low levels, everyone argues about this is correct, no, that's correct, my Tai Chi is better than your Tai Chi, my master's better than your master, or even now in Taoism, which school or branch of Taoism are you in? Is it Chuanjin Pai? Is it Zheng-Yi Pai? Which one does the best? Or Northern Taoism is this, Southern Taoism is that. This is a Western way of looking at things, this competitiveness of which is best. There isn't a best, there's just practice. No Taoist will ask you what your practice is. That's private to you, what you do with your master. They can look at you and know whether you have a practice. That's what's important. It radiates out. They're not going to ask you what they do, but they know you do something. Because they all have different ways of practice, northern, southern, whichever. The practice I have has both. I'm just blessed with that. It's what the Daoists in Beijing, in the White Cloud Temple, say is the mystery of mysteries. How can that be? I don't know. It's been handed on. That's why I'm sitting here. I wouldn't have known without my teacher. He didn't tell me this. It's them that tell you this. What you're doing is ancient. We must stick with the ancient ways. In many calligraphies you see the 8 immortals, and there's one sitting on a donkey and he's looking backwards, he's riding backwards. He's looking back to the ancients. You must look back to the ancient ways to go forward, not invent new stuff. Yeah, keep creating. Everything evolves. We're modern days. We have cars now, not horse and carts. But you must look back to go forward and don't lose the ancient ways, or we've lost it. We can talk about we can talk about Daoism all day long, but there's no energy in it. There's no essence.
Yeah, and a lot of that resonates with me on my journey, and the forks in the road that I had and the stumbles that I had, because I think I was quite representative of the West,
Yes.
where I was disembodied.
Yes.
Ken Robinson's got a great phrase on this, that for most people, the body is a vehicle to move the brain between meetings. And
I like
for
that.
me, that was certainly my journey.
Yes.
And so, I kind of told myself I was uniquely messed up for being anxious. And then I found that, wow, this book from ancient China, and the Daoists had ideas that still resonate with me despite the world being so different. So that value of the ancients being so much, but still noticing that I would just want to devour every book on Daoism that I had and use that as my practice. And still the gift of the embodied learning, and to come back to the embodied learning has been something that has really served me on my journey. And I think that for what little my journey can resonate with others is because we live in this society. Not only we're not on mules and buffalo anymore, but we have TikToks, and our attention span is 7 seconds, and it's all about the next thing, and that next thing is becoming shorter and shorter as our attention span gets less and less. And so it takes courage and practice to say, okay, no, I'm not going to get caught in the rush, and actually to look backwards and to see what that can teach.
Yes, fantastic. That's the way. That's the way. You have to resist this. You have to live in the modern world, but use the old ways. But people can't see you doing that. You have to fit in. Don't stick your head up and say, look at me, I'm Daoist. The singing bird, bang, they shoot you.
Yes.
So Daoists are low key. They people, even in China, they try to dictate how they are, how they live in the temples, etc. But they do as they're told, but behind the scenes they carry on their practice. Once you have your practice, no one can take that away from you. It's yours for life.
And here's a Western question for you, is how do we develop that practice? If there's one piece of advice that you could give the listeners, what would that be to help them create their own practice where they can deepen, not just on an intellectual basis?
Lose the fear and the stress and tension of modern life. That, you must start on that. Because if you don't lose the fear and stress, the fear of being successful in life, the fear of being a failure in life, the fear of not passing an exam, the fear of passing the exam, the fear of not having a good job, the fear of not having a job, you've got to lose that and just be and accept what Tao sends to you. Lose the fear and the stress. Then if you do that and have your practice and you empty the mind, quieten yourself, be still, then nature will endow you with longevity. Longevity is an outcome of the practice. It's not something you aim for. You aim for what we've just said, to connect to Tao, to connect closer to nature, to follow nature. Nature will then reward you with longevity. That means you might get a few more years in your life. You need the years to cultivate more. I can't do it in 2 minutes. Is that okay?
The stresses and the anxiousness that many people feel, Desmond talks about there's two. There's an external stress and an internal stress, stress that you put on yourself. And learning how to lose that because is so vitally important in your practice, but for you, because it causes tension, not just physically in your body, but it causes tension in your mind, in your emotions, and your spirit. And if you're in that state, it's very, very difficult to connect with Tao, to connect with what he's talking about, because there's just too much noise and stress in your
empty the mind. I know that's easy to say, but go into the body and let the energy of your body talk to you. The mind is like a big resistor. You make the mind tense and energy can't get through, can't penetrate. Li Qi, heavenly Qi, because we haven't talked about that, but once you've developed Qi, then you can connect to Li Qi. It's very difficult to connect to it without strong Qi. So heavenly Qi, cosmic energy from Tao. But your brain, if it's hard and you're tense in mind and body and emotions, you can't catch it. You need to be open, a conductor, open that stop thinking so much, and then embody it, let it come through into you, to your dantians. Then you make big progress. So this resistance in the brain blocks your development. Arrogance, I know best. People, it stops their development, and they don't even know it. They think they know, but they don't. So don't become arrogant. It stops your development dead, and you cannot see it. You can't. It's invisible. It's invisible. It's the invisible stuff that's important, not what we can see with our eyes.
Powerful, yeah. And that really resonated, the fear of success and the fear of failure. Because normally it's just the fear of failure that people focus on.
Yes.
And because, success is just assumed to be this good thing. But it's clinging and it's contriving ideas of who we should be in some perceived possible future that's only constructed in our minds.
Yes.
And that creates a lot of structures, which then is rigidity, right? And so then that stops the flow that can support us in the everyday. And then the emptying. And on my journey, certainly that's one of the big alchemizing, that I'm still on my journey of having that stress that normally then would have a narrative around it. So fear equals bad, or success equals good, failure equals bad. And so all of these emotions, we begin to narrate stories about them, and increasing that rigidity of, again, emotions, which can be energy in motion. So to take that stress and to alchemize it into loving kindness and presence, and to then be able to use that energy to then be able to live our lives and to be of service. That's a powerful, powerful practice.
Desmond always talks about nature, following nature. Nature is benevolent. He talked about it earlier on. Tao has created nature, and nature, it gives you everything you need to live on. It gives you food, gives you water, it gives you grain, everything. But
I'm not talking about the nature that we go into the countryside and look at the sheep and the trees and the forest. Not that nature. It's the invisible nature. People think you mean go and hug a tree, or look at the mountains, see the sheep and cows. No, it's the invisible nature, George. That's the one that's important.
And again, something that I started off being quite atheistic, and science is still an important part of what I share, and observation is the key tool of the Daoist. Observing the world within and outside to see what principles we can determine, and that is what science does. But then to allow myself to open to the natural awe and wonder and the natural energy that I get when I get out of my own way, and just to be present, and to then have that energy be to guide me and to support me. And it's funny how collectively we get in our own way of that abundance that
yes.
is available.
Absolutely. Just going back to what you were saying in terms of a science, Daoism, people sometimes misunderstand Daoism because it's talking about the invisible and lofty ideas, and even Confucius didn't totally understand the Daoists. But Daoism is a science. It's an ancient science,
Yes.
and it's a science from the East. So but it's absolutely scientific. When we do our practice, you're practicing, and it's repeatable. It's something that you can compare, and from one day to the next day, and it's something that you can build on, and it's not something that is all floaty. It's very much rooted in reality, complete reality.
Yeah.
It's
Sure. Yeah.
Go on.
Tao is the road, the route, the path. Nature is the method. That's it.
Beautiful. And before, I want to hear a bit about the exciting things that you are both up to with your Dao sharing. One final alchemy exploration. I want to come back to love, because love in other traditions, say, Christianity with Jesus's radiant heart is something that is often talked about, his infinite compassion for all beings. And there are ideas of compassion and love in Daoism, but they aren't as, in my view, emphasized. And so I want to just explore what your understanding of Daoism, understanding of love is in regards to Daoism, what it is, and how can we cultivate it if it is important.
Well, love is very much in Daoism, but it's not in the terms of this sort of chemical, sort of emotional love. As we've talked about, nature is benevolent. It is absolutely abundant, and it provides us as human beings on this planet, with everything that we need. So we have everything that we need, but at the same time, it's not. It doesn't love you.
But it doesn't hate you.
But it doesn't hate you.
No.
That is humans putting human traits on nature.
Yeah. Nature and Tao, they're not human. Tao is an entity, too big to comprehend. It's not human, so we can't think. Us thinking in a human way is not the way that Tao works. It's not possible. So we can't comprehend it. Go on, you can carry on.
Well, it's in terms of nature, as we say, it's benevolent. But then, if you don't flow with nature, if you go against nature, Desmond always uses the example of, let's say you go hiking. We have a temple in Tenerife, and often you hear of it snows, even though it's warm at sea level. At the top it snows, and you hear of people that go walking, and they go up to the top. But then they just wear what they wear down by the beach, a little vest, pair of shorts or whatever, and then they don't come back because you can't battle that with nature. But nature doesn't care. It's not, oh no, they've only come up to the mountain in a pair of shorts. We'll protect them. It's their own doing. So it doesn't distinguish.
No. Nature, it doesn't hate you, it doesn't love you. If you don't work with it, that's your business. The outcome is your effects, nothing to do with nature. Nature provides, it's how you use it. If you don't care to be correct, if you go up the mountain in a pair of shorts and it snows and you die, nature isn't bothered, Tao's not bothered. We're too small.
Absolutely.
It's up to you. This is why you must connect to it.
Yeah, and not requesting of the universe, please save me because I haven't brought enough clothes. It's like
You do it yourself. This is why Daoism is not number one in the world for people, because the practices you have to do the practice, George, yourself, don't you? In religions, the priest can do it for you. In Daoism, you have to do it yourself. That's too hard for most people. Too difficult.
There's no psychologists in Taoism.
There's no psychologist in Taoism.
You have to sort yourself out. The medicine, the therapy is your practice.
So that alchemic practice that we talked about earlier, that you mentioned, that energy must come up and sort this out. Your mind, which you're doing, you must sort that out yourself. No psychiatrists. You do it yourself. Then you don't need them. But you need a lot of energy. You must bring the energy up to it. It's no good it just sits in your dantian. It's got to come up. But how does one get it to there? That's the practice.
I want to bring it back to, because that's talking about the big Tao, but part of this microcosm of the Tao, the human, is feelings of love and love in relationship. So, I'm interested to hear, how does one navigate that emotional landscape of our lives from Taoist principles?
Go on. Do you want to?
I can start. I mean, it's again. I know we keep talking about the practice, but the practice really is the key to it, because in Taoism you're dealing with not just building a strong body. Lots of you might meet a big strong man who's muscly, who's fit and strong, but one word from their girlfriend, their wife, and it totally cuts them up, because internally
they're not strong.
They're not strong. It's not balanced. They don't have their practice, their physical practice of working the muscles and becoming stronger externally hasn't had an effect internally. So the practice your external practice, through Taoist practice, the external practice can reach you internally. It can turn the keys and open pathways for your internal development, that alchemy, for your mind, for your emotions to become more refined. They're principles in Taoism such as harmony and balance, yin and yang, things that we've touched on, and that for if people will know them if they're familiar with Taoist texts. But then how do you apply that? How do you make that a reality for you? Not just a head thing that you read, but how can you make that real in your life, in your day-to-day interactions with someone? If you're driving in the road and then someone cuts you up, and then and then you lose it, and you get the road rage or whatever. How do you not navigate that? And that's through the practice, and through that change.
You learn to control your emotions so that you can talk to each other and resolve issues by talking. Resolve it by talking, not starting a war. Resolve it by talking. That's the way to do it. Not getting angry. Just keep calm and resolve it. Don't go, wow! Someone cuts you up, whoa! You wonder, why are they like that? And it's the same in relationship. You have to learn to be harmonious and get on with each other. Give and take. Let your partner, people have freedom and the ability to breathe and move. In Taoism, there's no couples, there's only individuals, and you work that together. Then love can develop. I mean, there's lustful visual love where I love them, but then there's a much deeper love which comes from your soul, your spirit. That's a different love. And it's which one we're talking about, which one are you working on? You have to distinguish between chemical love with the eyes and the invisible love with the internal eyes.
In relationships, often it's about controlling the individual. That you love them if they do what you want, but if they don't do what you want, then it goes out the window, and and that's not Taoist. That's not a Taoist understanding. It's you don't control them. They're an individual, and they're choosing to be with you in terms of if you were in a relationship. It doesn't go up and down and swing. You give them that freedom to be them.
You've got to be calm. If you lose your temper once, it's technically a bit of mental illness. In Taoism, you're not mentally ill, but you've shown a touch of mental illness. Emotionally, there's emotional illness. Even if you do it once in a year, you haven't eradicated it. Just as if you get ill in a year, technically your health isn't as good as it could be. Now, to most people, that sounds like nonsense, but that's, in your practice, that's what you're aiming for, that I don't lose it, even once in a year. And the practice is, when you feel it rising, can you control it with your energy and bring it back down again? Then you're starting to get control of the energies of the body. But you need a strong mind to do it. Then love will come naturally.
Beautiful, yeah. That feeling of love in a grounded and safe way, where it's not love, clinging and demanding of others and trying to control them, but through our practice of being able to, in a grounded way, to be in connection in a way that is safe for you and for them, because you know yourself. And so then, that alchemizing, and what a beautiful way to...
You've got to love yourself, number one.
Number one, love yourself. And it's hard to do that at first. You've got to work on it. That's the practice. You work on that through your practice. It's a circle. But remember, what we're talking about is a science. It's not just fiction or a man-made religion. It's a science based on energy.
Well, I'm feeling love in hopefully a grounded way for both of you, for your wisdom today, and for so much depth there, and really grateful. And before we close our conversation, I'd love to hear more about your exciting project that we were talking about before we started recording in Leeds, and a bit more about your teaching and how people can find out about what you're doing and support some of the work that you're doing.
Well, we're very, very excited, because for about 40 years, Desmond has been teaching in community venues, in church halls, and we've been asked by the White Cloud Temple in Beijing to set up a centre in the UK, and we found a building that is actually very, very, very perfect. The feng shui is wonderful, and we're currently fundraising. We're very, very excited to very soon have a permanent base for our practice.
Yes.
Where other Taoist experts can come, and we can do and share more of Taoist wisdom to people that need it, because people in modern people need it.
But we're up against developers who want the same facility.
Yes.
To knock it all down and build apartments. So you're always up against that. So this is the challenge.
We've got basically a little deadline. So we're running a crowdfunding campaign currently, and we've got just under 2 weeks now to hit a target. So we've got a deposit that we can put down on the building. So it'd be wonderful if some of your subscribers could support that. That just every little bit counts.
Everything counts.
We would be very, very grateful.
But when the centre's open, you're welcome to come to it. You're welcome.
There'll be a place of teaching, and the White Cloud Temple have already named it.
Yeah.
And Wai-Yii Yeung, so it's Sea Cloud Temple, but Guan is in a place of observation,
of
reflecting, learning,
So temple can mean a hall. To use the word temple can be a bit religious sounding in the West. So, but it can be a hall. A hall. It's a place of learning, of development, of nurturing. It's not technically just religion praying to a god, which some people resist that now. So we don't want to get involved in a thing about religion, because Lao Tzu, when he wrote Dao De Jing, he did not write it as a religion. It's a way of living. It's a culture. That's very important to distinguish that.
Well, I'm sure the audience know from this conversation that the work that you're doing is amazing and valuable, and there's a lot of depth to what you share. And I've donated, and in the description of the video and the podcast, there will be links to donations. And what would people search in to find you?
If they go to the Just Giving website and search Awakening the Tao with a T, then we'll be there. And yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, Desmond and Wai-Yii, what a privilege and joy to have you. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to meet you. Thank you very much.
Privilege. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to support me, make more episodes like this, as well as learning loads for yourself, check out the online Wudang Daoist Wellness Academy, Master Gu's teaching platform. You can learn Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, Daoist philosophy, so much amazing content from the ancient Chinese and Daoist traditions to help you take charge of your wellness. There's a free 7-day trial so you can try with no risk to see what learning is available, and join perhaps Master Gu for some of his live streams and the community. There's so much for you to explore. Click the link in the description. Hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you for the next video.